Vice President for Congressional Relations and Economic Justice of the National Partnership for Women and Families. I'm sure you've all had a chance to meet her in person at any given point over the last couple of years. And today she will be here sharing more information about a number of topics, including the U.S. Pacific Islands Forum and the other work taking place across the White House. Erica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my dear friend, Phil. And thank you, too, for including Steph, Rob, and Greg on this call. It's a little-known, deep problem and concern in our community, and you've surfaced it for the work that we do as a cornerstone priority in the White House for all of America. I'm proud to be their colleagues, and they are also my personal and professional heroes, sparking the work that we do and confidence in not just what we have coming in the future, but where we are now and the work that's being undertaken. So, aloha, y'all. It's great to be back here with you virtually for our regular update calls. I do want to begin by thanking everyone for your outreach, brokenheartedness, and activism in the immediate aftermath of the Maui wildfire crises. Just to reinforce what Phil started with, while it began 2 months ago, and for many it feels like many lifetimes, or just yesterday, our native Hawaiian brothers and sisters in the beautifully diverse local community in Lahaina are not yet through it. The recovery and healing process has only just begun. And President Biden is committed to being a strong partner with the local community, state and local governments, and civil society partners for as long as it takes. So with that, I'm going to turn to what we usually do in these calls. I'm going to give a little bit of a top line of what's going on in the West Wing. But really, today I'm just going to caption what's going on outside of the West Wing, because our principals have not been home. They've been out in the world. They've been traveling through the country with a pretty robust and exhausting schedule, just even witnessing it from afar. So the president yesterday was in Detroit on the picket lines with the United Auto Workers. And while it was a historic day for the president, his purpose was not about him. It was to stand with the workers, as he has done all of his life. Today, he's in San Francisco. He's meeting with the PCAS, the President's Council of Advisories on Science and Technology. They develop recommendations on science, technology, and innovation policy. And then he's going to conclude this round of the trip in Arizona. The First Lady, Dr. Biden, is in Kansas City, Missouri today at the Truman Library, where she will meet with high school students. The Vice President just returned from the first leg of her Fight for Our Freedom college tour across the nation. And the Second Gentleman honored the holy day of Yom Kippur at a local temple on Monday, and then last night joined the Pacific Island Forum Summit barbecue at the Australian ambassador's residence with delegations from 18 Pacific Island nations and U.S. officials from across the government. And it's this latter engagement that I wanted to expand upon here for you. At last year's historic first ever Pacific Island Forum Summit, President Biden and Vice President Harris committed to strengthening our partnership with the Pacific Islands. And since then, they have delivered. We opened new embassies in the Solomon Islands and in Tonga. Next year, we're going to open an embassy in Vanuatu. And we're expanding USAID's work in the region with a new mission in Fiji and more personnel in Papua New Guinea. Peace Corps volunteers are back on the ground in Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga. And they're going to be in Vanuatu soon. So this week, at this year's summit hosted at the White House on Monday, President Biden expanded and built upon this foundation. He renewed our commitments to enhancing our partnerships with the Pacific Islands, announcing new actions and new partnerships, including $200 million in funding and new programs to continue the United States' commitment to expand and deepening our cooperation with the Pacific Islands. We also committed more than $20 million in new investments to prepare for climate and natural hazards in the region. On the diplomatic side, President Biden announced that the United States recognizes the Cook Islands and Niue as independent sovereign nations and intends to establish formal diplomatic relationships with each nation. And to build on the increased high-level engagement under the Biden-Harris administration, UN Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield will lead the U.S. delegation to the Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting in November 2023 on climate change, which has been top of mind for some states, particularly low-lying island states in the Pacific Ocean. Increasing sea levels pose an existential threat. The president announced that the United States considers that sea level rise driven by human-induced climate change should not cause any country to lose its statehood or its membership in the UN, its specialized agencies, or other international organizations. We intend to provide $8 million to expand our information services for resilience initiative announced last September. And we intend to provide $5 million to co-fund a fisheries and ocean science vessel to be managed by the Pacific community. The vessel will support sustainable management of the region's tuna resources of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, as well as ocean science research critical to addressing climate change impacts on the ocean. And now to my favorite, people-to-people ties. We expect to form at least 7 sister cities partnerships with Pacific Island nations by 2026 in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the Sister Cities International. We're going to more than double the number of academic exchange opportunities for Pacific Island countries to include the U.S. South Pacific Scholarship Program, Fulbright, and the Global Undergraduate Exchange Program. And last but not least, Peace Corps volunteers have returned to Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga, working side by side with local counterparts in the areas of education, economic development, youth, and climate. And the Peace Corps is working to return volunteers to Vanuatu in 2024. So I thank you for your indulgence in letting me spool out on this. For those of you who want even more information, we have a fact sheet up on the White House website that goes into even more detail and other activities we have committed to doing with our Pacific Island partners. I'm incredibly awed and proud of this work because as President Biden has footstomped over and over again this week in public spaces and in private spaces, we are a Pacific nation. And that means something to him. And as the second gentleman said last night at the closing dinner, addressing the delegations of the 18 Pacific Island nations and our Pacific Island diaspora communities here, he said, quote, "We want all Pacific Island leaders to know that the United States is eager to listen and work with you." But it's more than just that. Foreign policy is domestic policy, and domestic policy is foreign policy. You hear the president talk about this all the time, and many of you are a living embodiment of this. As community leaders, advocates, and thought partners throughout our foreign policy engagements, you all have been surfacing the impact they have on your local communities and what it means to you. And so I'm hoping that you feel as proud as I do of our role as a Pacific Island nation and how critical it is to be seen and valued for the historical, family, and other ties that we have to our ancestral homelands as a diaspora. Thank you. Mahalo for your time. Phil, back over to you.